Autopen pardons? What do you think about this?
Well, there are two issues. One, what is the document that was signed? And second, what was the nature of the Autopen documents? The Constitution requires that any bill, before it becomes law, has to be directly signed by the president. The Constitution says he shall sign, not the vice president. He can't delegate it. He must sign. And so if a bill is signed by Autopen, I think there's a very substantial argument that it's unlawful. Pardon, on the other hand, it simply says in the Constitution, he shall have the power to pardon. And I suspect that probably the courts would say that the president can pardon orally. Then he doesn't have to write it down. He can pardon orally. So the only question as to pardons is, did he exercise that power, or was it exercised by someone else? We know it was he who exercised the power to pardon his son because he talked about it. But the pardons that came in the last day in favor of the January 6th congressional people, we don't know who authorized that.
Legendary lawyer Alan Dershowitz giving his opinion on the situation right now involving President Trump, saying that Joe Biden's pardons are not valid. Why? Due to the fact that the pardons allegedly weren't signed by Joe Biden himself. The pardons were allegedly signed by Autopen. Now, this may seem like it's not that big of a deal, but this is huge when it comes to the president of the United States and the authorization of pardons, passing bills and legislation, because you get a rogue staffer on the team that gets access to that Autopen. How many things could come down the pike that can negatively impact the American people without the knowledge of the president? And typically this would not ever happen. But unfortunately, we had 4 years of dealing with Joe Biden, who we now know was mentally incapacitated. He was not there. The reports came out that his workday was from something like 11 o'clock to between 3 and 4, because having quote unquote alleged Alzheimer's, the later in the day that it goes, the more things kind of get out of whack and get loopy. If you remember, during the debate with President Trump, Joe Biden looked horrible. He looked like he's already an older man at 81, but he looked like he was 101. His thoughts weren't coherent. He was saying things that didn't make sense. He was rambling on. And if you remember, that debate was like at 9 p.m. Eastern time. It was a really late night, and that threw him off his game. And then when he came back and he gave his State of the Union address, if you remember that, or no, he gave a rally in like North Carolina or something. Man, he was juiced up. He had did his State of the Union before the debate, and he was juiced up. And alleged sources have come out saying they gave Joe Biden something that gave that boost. And you know, they did find that little baggie in the White House that had some of the. Now, you know, we always like to look at good old Hunter, but wouldn't it be something we found out old Joe was touching on some of the book of sugar? You know, but so right now, President Trump voiding out those pardons is huge. So in this video, I'm going to lay out some of the evidence that Carolyn Levitt, which is President Trump's press secretary, President Trump himself have laid out, and who the culprit is that was allegedly using President Biden's Autopen that may have overstepped their bounds and put us in this situation that we have right now. So let's check out this article from the New York Post. And the reason why I like using outlets like the New York Post, because, you know, the first thing people like to say when you use like Fox or Daily Wire, they say, oh, it's MAGA. No, this is a left-leaning outlet, like most of the media outlets are. But, you know, when the left-wing outlets say President Trump is a percentage of 45% approval, it's probably closer to 60, because anytime they have to report anything positive on Trump, you might as well multiply that by 5 or 10 times, because they're going to do what they can to downplay it. It's a shame. But that's why, you know, you're sitting here and you're with me right now, because it's much more of a trustworthy resource being able to show what's going on, the actual evidence to back it up, rather than saying, well, sources, who's the source? But it says here, Biden's sources suspect key aide may have abused Autopen as Trump's far more restrictive signing rules reveal. All right, so a key aide to former President Joe Biden may have exceeded their authority by liberally using an Autopen to sign official documents, according to two former White House sources, as President Trump's aides set up far more restrictive rules governing the use of the mechanical device. A document obtained by the Post outlines the narrow set of circumstances in which Trump's signature can be affixed to documents, following controversy this week kicked off by Heritage Foundation analysis of Biden's signatures on various records, including last-minute pardons. A small group of officials under both Biden and Trump have been delegated the power to get documents signed robotically. But 82-year-old Biden's perceived cognitive decline sparked debate about whether some aides may have assumed his wishes in his final stretch as commander-in-chief. One Biden White House source told the Post they suspect a key aide to then president may have made unilateral determinations on what to auto-sign. The Post is not publishing that staffer's name due to the lack of concrete evidence and refutations by other colleagues. So the Post already has an idea of who it is, but they're just unwilling to let it out right now. But guess what? We know who it is, or who it's alleged to be. And let me introduce you to her. If you're enjoying the video, do me a solid, hit that like button. I appreciate you, and I'll never ask you for a cash app. I'll never ask you for a super chat. You hitting that like button, that is currency, and it really helps out the channel. And if you aren't subscribed, subscribe to the channel on the Real Politics Podcast. That's what we do, talk real politics. So once you subscribe, hit the notification bell and select all. That way you'll be notified when I upload new videos. The alleged staffer that was using the Autopen, her name is Neera Tanden. Now, Neera Tanden was Joe Biden's White House staff secretary and has been outed as the one using Biden's Autopen to sign important documents, including pardons, without Biden knowing about them. Now, this right here will straight up get the pardons to potentially be canceled because they weren't supposed to happen. Look at this. The people that was pardoned, okay? And this is by Colin Rugg. He's extremely trustworthy. President Trump declares Biden's last-minute pardons before leaving office are void due to the alleged use of Autopen. Joe Biden did not sign, and more importantly, he did not know anything about them. Included his family members, Dr. Fauci, General Mark Milley, and the January 6th committee. Now, let's check out this video that the Heritage Foundation put up to give evidence of the Autopen signature for Joe Biden versus the actual signature. And as you heard Alan Dershowitz state earlier, that's extremely critical because some people might say, well, why does it matter? Can you imagine a rogue staffer getting that thing and pardoning people and signing legislation? People could get hurt, especially if they're a left-wing, extreme, radical libtard like this lady is. And I'm going to show you a clip of just how extreme this lady is and how she got put in her place by a conservative host on one of the CNN shows this week. We're going to get to that. But let's look at this video. Now, the reason why the Autopen is so important to pay attention to on this video, because if you look, every single signature for all of these pardons are exactly the same. And nobody writes like that. Nobody writes where every single time it's exactly perfect. I mean, nothing out of place. So as you see on his family pardon, J6, General Mark Milley, Dr. Fauci, all of the pardons, and who's that? Lundergan, all of those signatures are exactly the same, which is evidence and proof of Autopen usage. So with Autopen usage, who's to even know that Joe Biden was at all aware that this was happening? And if he wasn't aware, then that makes them null and void, which means that President Trump can hold them accountable now for the destruction of the evidence in the January 6th investigation, for Dr. Fauci and the whack lies that he sold to the American public during one of the most draconian lockdowns in the history of the planet. You know, his family, Jim Biden, if you did not know, and there is documents and evidence, bank statements to prove it. The lamestream media keeps trying to say, oh, no evidence. There's tremendous evidence and the bank statements showing that James Biden, took in millions of dollars. And not only that, when the money was coming into him through a shell company, he would move from that shell company into his personal accounts. And from those accounts was dispersing the money to Joe Biden. They literally tracked a deposit from a payment from the CCP with the communist China people, which is communist China. They showed a wire that come into Jim Biden. It hits his bank account to the shell company. Boom. He puts like 400 grand into his personal account. Next thing you know, 40,000 goes off to Joe Biden under alleged loan, but it wasn't called a loan until after Congress started finding it. Even their own accountant testified under oath that they were unaware of any loans. And yes, these people were brought to testify in Congress. And when people miss out on those congressional hearings and those Senate hearings, it's really hard for them to be able to decipher the truth. Because by the time the lamestream media gets it, they take an 8-second clip, edit it up, throw it out there, and manipulate it to the point where the American public have a skewed view of what's really going on. But luckily, the intelligent level that you have doing your research and digging, you've probably already figured out that they do this crap. But and in these hearings, you know, when these folks testified under oath about what the January 6th committee was doing and was not doing, about the witnesses that were being tampered with by Adam Schiff and Liz Cheney, allegedly. So now, as usual, in the White House press briefing room, Caitlin Collins, she just wants to be a big star. And so every chance she gets to try to think she's going to stick it to the press secretary, she tries. And when we have this evidence with the Autopen, the mainstream media is doing everything they can to back Joe Biden up as usual. So let's check out this exchange between Caitlin Collins and the White House press secretary, Carolyn Levitt. And now Carolyn Levitt, very calmly, lets her know what's really going on. Unlike Karine Jean-Pierre, this press secretary, will take it and can give it right back. Check this clip out.
The president was begging the question that I think a lot of journalists in this room should be asking about whether or not the former president of the United States, who I think we can all finally agree was cognitively impaired. I know it took people some time to finally admit that, but we all know that to be true, as evidenced by his disastrous debate performance against President Trump during the campaign. I digress on that. But the president was raising the point that, did the president even know about these pardons? Was his illegal signature used without his consent or knowledge? And that's not just the president or me raising those questions, Caitlin. According to the New York Post, there are Biden officials from the previous White House who raised those questions and wondered if the president was even consulted about his legally binding signature being signed onto documents. And so I think it's a question that everybody in this room should be looking into, because certainly that would propose perhaps criminal or illegal behavior if staff members were signing the president of the United States autograph without his consent.
Biden is on the record talking about issuing preemptive pardons to these people.
But was he aware of his signature being used on every single pardon? That's a question you should ask the Biden White House.
Is there any evidence on that he wasn't aware of it?
You're a reporter. You should find out.
Isn't it funny how the mainstream media is always doing everything they can to try to one-up a conservative? I'm talking about whether they bring them on the show in the press briefing room. Is there evidence of this and evidence of that? It's amazing how much evidence and proof they need now, when for the last 4 years, Karine Jean-Pierre, and I used to watch these White House press briefings just hoping that Peter Doocy or Jackie would get a chance to ask a real question, because everybody else lobs up crap like, did the president like ice cream? Oh my God, does he like sprinkles on that? Did he tie his shoes this morning using his right hand predominantly or his left hand? It's the craziest crap in the world. They ask all of these softball questions, or, if they ask something about race or gender, Karine Jean-Pierre, we take this seriously, and this president take this serious. The way that lady used to talk used to aggravate the crap out of me, because her word salad, and it's no wonder how she got so skilled at word salad. Did you know that she worked on Kamala Harris's staff prior to going into the White House? That's how she got linked up with them. She was gay, black, and a woman. They told Jen Psaki, hit the road and go to MSNBC, MSDNC, and she did. Now, on this clip, we thank goodness that we got Scott Jennings on CNN. He's the only reason why anybody would even want to watch CNN, especially a conservative, because what he does, and it's an entire panel of left-wing extreme libtards that always, their unified thought, groupthink, their whole slogan is vote blue no matter who, which is the most brainwashed program crap I've ever heard in my life. But Scott Jennings is always there to just present common sense. And it takes all of them just to try to deal with him. And he does it so smoothly. Check out this exchange between him and Neera Tandem. Now, ironically, she's the same exact woman that's accused of using Joe Biden's Autopen. But this clip will give you an idea of her mentality and how she thinks. Check this out.
It's pretty wild, actually. The other night, Donald Trump said these are domestic terrorists. Everybody laughed about it and scoffed at it. That video looks like terrorism to me. I mean, it's obviously an organized, coordinated effort, however people are communicating with each other.
About the attacks on Tesla dealerships.
People around the country who chose to buy a Tesla at some point in the past, many of whom I'm sure are Democrats who bought them in the first place, all because their entire political worldview is ruled by their emotions. And that's the American left right now. It is one angry mob after another willing to take things into their own hands, up to and including keying, firebombing, and otherwise vandalizing cars and car dealerships and charging stations. It's outrageous. It is terrorism. People ought to be put in jail and left there for a very long time and be taught a lesson.
So when they do it to a Tesla dealership, it's really bad. But when they do it to the halls of Congress, we should pardon them. Is that your position?
No.
See how just condescending she comes in with it? You already know what plane this lady's coming from just from her introduction. And look at the title they give her. They give her President and CEO of Center for American Progress. They did not put down she was the White House staff secretary. Why not? Typically, they always put former White House press, well, former da-da-da. But on hers, they completely removed that association with the Biden administration. And the information has already come out about this woman. Is there any wonder why CNN is trying to cover it up?
I've
Yeah,
never. I don't
are
support-
we okay with
I know you
pardons?
haven't been around for a while. So let me educate you about my position about January the 6th.
I'm so sorry.
Let me
I'm so
educate.
sorry.
Let me
You don't
educate
need
you.
to-
No,
you
no,
don't
no.
need to
No, you don't need to.
patronize
You don't. You don't.
I'm
And
just
you don't need to
saying-
be condescending to
I'm
me.
not
So let me
condescending.
educate you about my position. You want to attack me? Let me
I'm just
finish.
asking
Let me
you-
finish.
I'm just asking
Let
you
me
a
finish.
question.
Let's do this January
I'm just
6th
asking
and
you
then
a
dinner.
question.
Yeah.
I'm sorry you're getting emotional.
Yeah, I'm sorry. You're a condescending person who hasn't been paying attention to what I do.
Stop, guys.
So here's the issue. I didn't support what happened on January the 6th and was one of the first Republicans to call it out. I don't support the pardons. I have repeatedly, just like my friend Ashley here, said that no violence in our political system is acceptable. But this right here, what's going on with a guy who helps our country, who runs successful companies, who doesn't have to be doing this, and now one of his companies is under systematic terroristic threat and violence all over the country, and people seem to be laughing about it or fine with it. It's outrageous. I've sat at this table and had people say, we should cut Elon Musk from the government totally. He rescued our astronauts today.
That's another thing. The media is not talking about the fact that Elon Musk and his SpaceX team rescued astronauts, that Joe Biden literally abandoned and left up there. It was only supposed to have been a couple days. They were there for 9 months. 9 months. And Elon Musk did that. And you don't hear anything in the media about it, hardly at all. What are they fear mongering about in the media? The fact that Elon Musk is exposing the waste, fraud, and abuse in the government. Forget the fact that they want to eliminate him from anything in the government. And he just went and rescued our astronauts. That's how deranged these people are.
Is that what we want? The treatment of this guy is outrageous. These people who are doing this need to be found, put in jail, and made an example of. That's my point.
Anyone who commits violence against Tesla or Congress or anyone else should be put in jail, 1,000%. But that should not stifle dissent or opposition from Elon Musk.
Give it a little lip service. Give it a little both sides. Go ahead.
Okay.
So
We're
John,
so both sides here. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry to say that people are legitimately upset. They're legitimately upset at Elon Musk, and they're doing it on their own, but there is no reason to have violence in the country. But I just wish all of us would support criticism of, or would support punishing people who are violent wherever they are.
For what I
and not
understand, the
letting them
Teslas
out
will
of jail.
fall apart.
This lady is just deranged. So as you saw, Miss Nira, that is who is allegedly the one who used Joe Biden's Autopen to sign those pardons for Fauci, the J6 committee, and the other 1,500. You heard it right. Joe Biden pardoned 1,500 people, the most ever of any president. If I'm not mistaken, matter of fact, it might be more like 4,000. Hold on, let me check real fast. If I'm not mistaken, how many pardons did Joe Biden do? People did Joe Biden pardon? Man, Joe Biden pardoned 8,064 people. That is insane. And there's no way he did that on purpose. Oh my God. I didn't even know it had got that high. 8,064 people who Joe Biden pardoned or provided clemency for between 2021 and 2025. Donald Trump did 1,700, but we know 1,500. That's where the 1,500 of that was 1,400. That was J6. But that's 1,700 for Trump, 1,927 for Obama, 200 for Bush in 8 years, 1,900 for Obama in 8 years, 1,700 for Trump, including this beginning of the second term. Joe Biden in one term, 8,064. This man is the most corrupt president. And I got a video coming out because the JFK files came out, and guess whose name is in it? Joe Biden. And you know I'm gonna bring it to you. So if you've been hanging in there with me this long, thank you so much. I really do appreciate it. And as always, if you haven't liked the video, share the video, subscribe to the channel. But I'm Brian Maxwell, and I look forward to seeing you at the top. Over and out.